Greetings, Mech Warriors. Mando here. Today we are continuing our coverage of the Succession Wars TRO from Catalyst Game Labs. We're jumping to page 9 and looking at the LCT-1V Locust. We will be looking at a couple of the contemporary variants today as well, but the Locust is a real good mech for us to look at because at this point I feel like everyone should have one. It was in the, or I should say is, in the A Game of Armored Combat box set. It was in that first wave of Catalyst plastic mechs, and it's just a really useful little mech for scouting and light harassment. And if you're playing a game and you've got a few hundred battle value left over and you're not really sure where to put it, why not grab one of these Locust variants? So, Locust, it's one of the bug mechs. It is 20 tons. It has a 160 rated engine, which gives it a walking speed of 8 and a running speed of 12. This, combined with the lack of jump jets, will basically mean that you're hoping to, every turn, run at least 10 hexes to get that 4-up move bonus. And with that, you're going to try to stay alive. That's your Mech Warrior's survival plan, speed is life, and all that. No jump jets does mean you're going to have to be aware of your terrain. If you move in to engage something, you have to be sure that you're going to either be able to move out to block line of sight behind some other terrain or run into some woods or whatever. But you also have to be aware, if you are engaging mechs with jump capability, are you going to be outmaneuvered if you go to engage something in a confined space, like an urban city environment or just a really dense rocky patch? Are they going to be able to utilize their jump to keep pace with you? Yes, you may well get a 3-up movement modifier, but if you end up in close range with your opponents for a few turns, that's going to basically negate your movement modifier, and sooner or later you're going to get clipped a couple times and your Locust will go down. Now, unlike the Flea that we looked at last time, the Locust does have an armor factor, or at least the 1V variant has an armor factor of 64, which is nice. I think very important to note here that the leg armor has been improved substantially. It has been doubled. You have 8 armor on your leg. You can now take a large laser hit to the leg and it will not go internal. Brilliant. Wonderful news. I think the Flea's biggest weakness was once that leg armor gets clipped by a medium laser, there's a chance that you lose that leg critical, take a motive hit, and you just start, your days are numbered. With the Locust, it has that leg armor. You can afford to risk the odd hit. The arms are still weak, but like I indicated in the last video, it's not great that you'll lose a gun, but there's no ammo in there, and it's not necessarily you're not gonna slow down because you lose an arm. So, the increased armor is nice. I wouldn't use this thing to brawl by any stretch. It just means that you have a get out of jail free card if you get clipped by anything smaller than a PPC. What does this mean for the Locust tactically based upon its weapon loadout? Well, with the 1V, you've got a medium laser in the center torso, machine gun, 1 in each arm, and you've got 200 machine gun rounds in your center torso. Obviously, having ammo, it's got a small risk of detonation, but as it's in the center torso and you're a light mech, really, if you're getting to that point, you're probably dead anyway. Anything short of a really lucky through armor critical, this ammo is not going to have any impact on its survivability. But let's take a look into the medium laser. You're going to be taking pot shots with this thing. Like I said in the last video, a lot of these light mechs, they've got a medium laser plus a couple of other guns. You're basically going to be running around at medium to long range, just taking pot shots with the medium laser. It's free. You're going to sink whatever heat you generate with this mech, outside of a couple of circumstances which I'll talk about in a moment. You'll just be hooning around the place, blasting people with a laser, or spotting for indirect fire. That is also something that this mech is very nice for. You just pop up your catapult or your archer, or heaven forbid longbow, just starts raining LRM death upon whatever your target is from the safety of a giant rock. Whereas your Locust is just so annoying to hit, your opponent is going to be torn between engaging the Locust or walking presumably a long way while getting peppered by lasers and LRMs to get line of sight onto your indirect fire support. Moving on to the machine guns on the 1V, your mileage is going to vary with these depending on what rules you are playing with. So if you are playing with the rapid fire machine gun rules, where you can roll a d6 and it takes that many shots and generates that much heat, then this turns the Locust into a fantastic crit-seeking mech. You're getting towards the mid-late game, right? Armour has been peeled off a lot of things. Hopefully your Locust has been staying at a nice safe distance, just irritating and skirmishing, and it's pretty much healthy. You can run right in, blast them with a laser, roll 2d6, generate that much heat. You're going to generate heat in the Locust, that's fine. I mean, you hope you generate heat, right? You're hoping to roll double sixes and get those 12 shots off. But then you can start rolling crit locations for all these hits, and you're just hoping to find those nice tasty criticals, those exposed internal shots. So with that, you can use the Locust almost like you would use a Commando with the rocket pack, or the SRM pack rather. You're running in on a mech that's already vulnerable and just trying to find that kill shot or that crippling blow that knocks out the PPC or detonates the ammo or takes out the motive hit. The other use for the Locust's machine guns is if you are playing with combined arms. If you have infantry, machine guns, fantastic for clearing up infantry. Locusts can just, in between harassing people with the lasers, run off, nail an infantry squad, then relocate back to standard duties. It adds a nice level of flexibility. If you are not playing with the infantry or with the d6 shots on a machine gun rule, the machine guns are kind of useless. I wouldn't recommend getting that close in most circumstances. There will be some exceptions, and that's up to you to find, but it's not worth getting that close to a mech, because when you are within close range for most weaponry, it negates your 4-up movement modifier. They may as well be taking shots at a stationary long-range mech, if you understand my meaning. So the combination of range and your movement modifier is what's going to keep this mech alive. The little bit of extra armour on the 1V is nice and will help you out, but by no means should you move into danger close and engage face-to-face. But so that's the 1V. Let's look at a couple of these variants now. The 1S ditches the machine guns, replaces them with 2 SRM2s, and it drops a ton of armor to accommodate this. If you're not playing with the machine gun rules or infantry, if you're not playing with infantry or the rapid fire guns, I would probably recommend you take the SRM2 variant. It is nice and flexible if you want that similar feel. The SRMs obviously have the same range as your lasers, gives them a little bit more punching power, and lets it perform that same sort of crit-seeking role. You're going to be getting 5 shots, if you're good at rolling cluster hits, to try and find those crits, as opposed to 3 if you're not playing with the rapid-fire MG rules from a safer distance. Plus, the added redundancy, having 3 weapons that fire in the same range bracket, means you're probably going to be hitting with at least one of them every turn. So if you want that sort of role, the 1S would be my recommendation. Even if you are playing with the rapid-fire MG rules, this is up to your preference, whether you want that mech that stays back for the first half of the game and then sweeps in once things start wrapping up, then you take the 1V. However, if you want that harassment potential to be raised, the 1S. However, bear in mind that lower armor, that is noticeable. 1 ton, you're like, that's 1 ton. Yes, that's 1 ton though, and you'll feel that on the field. The 1M is a bit of it's a decision. I think you could make it work. It's very light fire support. Now, I complained that the Flea was under-armoured, but the 1M legitimately has 1 armour pip in some locations. You can look it up on your software of choice. I use SSW, but if you have your own place to get your mech sheets, check out the 1M. If you're playing a light lance, you want like a rapid LRM nuisance, or if you're on a map that for some reason just has no terrain, but is huge. If you're on a giant flat field, you can really do someone's head in with the 1M, just kiting them and shooting LRM volleys at them constantly from ranges that they can't engage. It's situational, I'll call it that. But it is, I think, the lightest armoured. I don't think you can have less armour than is on the 1M. I believe it is the lowest armoured thing you can have in Battletech. But yeah, if you want 2 LRM5s, there you go. The 1E is for those of you that enjoy a more balanced energy loadout. It ditches the machine guns and it carries a second medium laser and a small laser. So 2 medium lasers, 1 in each arm, 2 small lasers, 1 in each arm. This is probably the other alternative. I would probably say the S or the E, depending on what you want to do. The 2 medium lasers is obviously very nice, gives it some good bite and punching power. Probably optimum for that sort of skirmishing role. The S is good balance between the V and the E, giving the option to skirmish while also go crit seeking with these SRM2s. Honestly, I think it just comes down to what your preferred loadout is. If you're someone that really likes energy weapons like me, I find myself taking the E out a lot, but I enjoy running all of these Locusts, depending on what role I want them to perform. So I think that pretty much covers it for the Locust. It's a nice, flexible mech with a few loadouts that let it perform multiple roles. Depending on the rule set you're running will determine how useful the 1V is as a loadout, the stock. But the 3 standard variants that exist of it all serve a purpose and each have their own feel, and it comes down to your own biases as well. If you're someone that loves missile mechs, then the M or the S will speak to you. If you're one of these no ammo is more good, then the E is gonna speak to you. But it will depend somewhat. With, for instance, the M, it's going to come down a lot to the terrain, the rest of your lance. If you really just want a LRM and you're absolutely crushed for battle value. With regards to upgrading the pilots in these mechs, because it's slightly more durable and the battle value is on the 1V 432 and it stays vaguely in that area, it doesn't get too pricey with the variants, I probably wouldn't mind bumping the battle value a little bit by upgrading your pilot in the Locust. If you have a little bit of spare points and you're not too sure where to put it, the Locust isn't a bad shout. It obviously depends on your own lance composition and everything, but because you're going to be having this thing running around and harassing, you're going to be having that running modifier. If you can bump that down by 1 or 2, we all know how Battletech 2D6 probably works out. That'd be great. Just remember though, no matter how good your pilot is, if and when you decide to move in for those killer blows, be it in the back arc or on the exposed armour of an enemy mech, please remember you don't have jump jets. You need to consider the terrain where your enemy mechs are. If any enemy mechs in the area have jump jets and can just decide that they've had enough of your Locust running around and irritating them, there's a lot to be said for how annoying a mech like a Locust can be. And when your opponent is irritated, they're likely to misplay, even if that misplay is slapping this Locust so hard and with such a disproportionate amount of their lance that they try to punish you for ever daring to bring this thing to a fight. Like we said with the Flea, if a couple thousand battle value is running around trying to hit a Locust and you keep that movement modifier up, consider the Locust to be doing its job. Even if it's only getting 1 hit, whichever variant you take, if it's getting 1 or 2 hits in every round or 2, or even hitting every other round, if your opponent is diverting anything upward of 900 battle value to try and pin this Locust down, and they have to spend multiple turns doing that, this thing has served its purpose. And if you do manage to pull off the little, the crit seek or anything beyond that, that's just perfect. But it's what you would hope for, but not by any means what you should expect from a mech like the Locust. Where it earns its cost is in wasting time for your opponents, or by nickel and diming them, be it with LRM support indirectly, by spotting, or from the occasional laser hit, and just that little bit of irritation that'll cause your opponent over the course of a game.